Today is Wednesday, July 10th. I have just returned from Polk County District Court in Dallas, Oregon, with a hearing that Judge Norm Hill requested me to come to discuss why I had asked Judah Largent of Corvalis to no longer be my attorney, representing me on this case regarding my children and the attempt by Polk County to terminate our parental rights. Now, there's a lot that I would like to discuss in this video about the context of this case, because I didn't build the Polk County Courthouse. I didn't create the history that Polk County has, especially along racial lines, and I did not create the relationships between many attorneys and Judge Norm Hill. Now, in my work, I do a lot of diagnostics. I come into situations where I know none of the background, and there's a problem, and I have to accurately identify the problem, or at least part of it, and then I have to try to figure out, without anybody telling me, what created that problem over possibly a significant period of time. And in the same way, in Polk County, there is a relationship between Judge Norm Hill and lawyers in the county and in adjacent counties who have to take cases or choose to take cases in his court. I do not know of one attorney who has spoken positively about Judge Hill or being in his court. But I do know attorneys refusing to take cases in his court after their experiences where they claim they were humiliated. Judah Largent told me that the same thing happened in Judah's case, that Judge Hill humiliated him. Now, Judah filed a motion to show cause regarding bias. I was not consulted about that motion, and it was my understanding that that motion was about another case that I had no connection to, where Judge Norm Hill humiliated Judah for an extended period of time in his court, and then that motion went before Judge Campbell, and in 30 seconds, Judge Campbell minimalized it and kicked it to the curb. Today, however, Judge Norm Hill said that that motion was about my case. It was not. I was not included. I was not consulted about it or given option to discuss it in front of Judge Campbell. And so this is how it goes on in Polk County. So there's a lot of animosity and invective and feeling about Judge Hill that has nothing to do with my case, but in 6.5 years, I've heard a bunch of it. People who feel they were victimized in his court, mistreated, humiliated, lawyers who say they'll never be back for another case in his court, that he's an unfair judge, that he makes unfair rulings. Okay, so that's a lot of the background to this. It goes way beyond Judah Largent. But Judge Hill called me to say why it was I wanted to relieve Judah Largent. And in 6.5 years, I've had seldom opportunity to talk about what's going on that ranges beyond Judah Largent. And so this video is about far more than just Judah Largent. Now, let me bring up an anecdote that will maybe give you some idea of sentiments that are out there about Judge Hill. People have told me that they feel he absolutely hates them. But other people that come out of the blue when his name comes up. So there's this guy running around, and he says that he slept with Judge Hill's wife, Tina Hill, before they were married, and that Tina Hill invited this particular individual to the wedding, and he wouldn't go because Judge Hill, in his words, he's an incredible asshole. And so you wonder about why Tina Hill would invite her ex-lover, whatever, to her wedding with a different man. I don't get that part. Or so it's claimed. I don't know. But just to have this kind of a story come out of the blue gives context to the feelings about this judge. So I was told I have to be at this hearing and tell why I was asking to get rid of, well, I told Judah I didn't want to have him as an attorney anymore. And Judge Casso allowed him to leave the termination of parental rights trial. Now get this, the termination of parental rights, and Judge Hill kicked our case into that position. That trial started in January, and we were not allowed to finish it. It was moved, changed another day for half of it. And the can was kicked down the road repeatedly. Now, supposedly, it's going to be on August 19th. Well, how can you have a fair trial about the most important thing in your life, your children, and it's backhanded into the margins repeatedly like it's not an important case at all? Nobody can remember Jack. Nobody can remember what was said. They have to look at their notes if they made them. On July 25th, Apet and Alum McDaniel, our two little kids, have their birthday. Their birthday's on the same day. And in many years, neither I or my wife Michu have had the opportunity to spend the day with them on their birthday or to spend a day with them on any official or significant holiday. That's Christmas, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, Thanksgiving, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Easter, nothing. Now, Carissa Vela, who goes to the house church in Independence, Oregon, and sits there in the chairs and makes out that she's this hero foster mom. All you people at that church, I want you to ask her, what kind of, quote, Christian woman who's being paid to be a foster mom chooses to see herself only as an adoptive mom and refuses to communicate or share a single significant holiday with little children with their mother. No feeling for their mother. Laughed at her. Ridiculed her. Has said in court that she will not allow the children to see their siblings if she's the adoptive parent. I want to ask Ulysses Vela. I want to ask the Vela clan. I want to ask that church and the associated churches. This woman, Carissa Vela, has never said, hey, take this to your mom. It's Valentine's. Hey, let's get together. We'll take Christmas Eve this year. You take Christmas. not 1 ounce of compassion for Michu or myself, and then go and sit poker-faced in church with these 2 hostage children. I've seen the pictures. I don't see happiness. Separation anxiety, though, that's something that Carissa's created. Okay. So now Alum is going to be 10, and Ape is going to be at 8. And in 6 years, Alum's going to be 16. And he's going to know what happened. He's going to find out what happened. He's going to know. You know, it's like Aubrey Havocost, who intentionally separated Ape and Alum from us and their siblings. She has a daughter that's born about the same time, a month apart maybe, from Ape. Would she ever consider to have her daughter go through an experience like what Ape has gone through? I told her at the time, you're separating these 2 little kids out because you got them as an adoption package. Well, it's 6.5 years. Okay. Steve Walls, jumping up and down for TPR in January 2018. He's not there yet. Trying to do everything he can to destroy our family, child by child. Michu and I are still together. We still take care of each other. And Steve Walls destroyed his own marriage. Okay? So we've contacted Rebecca Gaston Jones. She was the African-American woman, I believe, who was the head of child welfare, and we talked to her about this case and how Dallas Child Services has treated us, how Aubrey treated us. Finally got Aubrey off the case after 4 years. Now we got this Sarah Scott, and they all pretend that, you know, when you let a mom know her kid's not going to show up 5 minutes before the meeting where everybody's taking their time off to be there, that's not traumatic. Amber McClellan has no clue at $130,000 a year how that could be traumatic. But they have a class for caseworkers and staff at DHS to go to on coping with the trauma that affects them. What an absolute bunch of shits. Okay? So we have like an 8-month delay in this TPR, so I don't even know if it's legal, if it goes forward, or if it has to be completely restarted. Now, you lose your children for whatever reason, it's a great sorrow. Nobody knows the sorrow that Michu's gone through. I don't think they care. The lawyers, it's all just business. I think Judge Norm Hill has less excuse. There have been several lawyers. He's been on the case the whole time. Michu supports her kids and she invests in her kids. She's gone through a lot. One thing, you know, I got there to the courthouse about 8:15 this morning for an 8:30 hearing, and this was scheduled by Judge Hill to tell me something or hear what I had to say. And the thing that I noticed right off the bat was all these cowards, Sarah Hernandez, Steve Walls, Sarah Scott, all these cowards that have been talking smack about us and our family for years didn't have the effing balls to show up for this hearing when I potentially would have something to say. To me, that's just classic. That was like, you are who you are. Okay. So another comment was that, and I remember Gary Hamilton was Michu's lawyer, and we were in a family meeting, and he said, he was pretty good at that point representing her. He had energy, and he said, every time DHS turns around, they take something away from Michu. So there's a hearing on July 22nd because Sarah Scott canceled the family meeting at 1:24, 6 minutes before we were supposed to enter the restaurant. We were all there and waiting. And this was the fourth time she's done it that way, where she said, Apia, the little girl, won't be coming. Well, they tell her not to come. They encourage her not to come because she would have separation anxiety, something that Carissa's created in collusion with the counselor and Sarah. And Sarah's gone to like so many visits at Michu's house along with an SSA. Totally unnecessary, but it was because she could give the stinky eye to Apia and make sure that, you know, Apia knew Sarah's the cop in this situation. Never trust cops, never. It's a culture of corruption. And Sarah's part of that. And she was playing that role, and we have watched while Apia will look to see if she has approval or disapproval before she talks about something or says something to her mother. So there's going to be a meeting about, because DHS asked the judge to move the visits for Michu away from the farm again, which they've done so many times before, back to DHS office, and Michu said out she will never go to the DHS office again to see her kids there under those conditions. And I don't blame her because they're scumbags, okay? And so when that visit was canceled, 6 minutes before, it wasn't canceled, but Apia wasn't going to come. Oh, she has a headache. She's not going to show up. It's like, oh, that's a coincidence 4 times in a row, huh? You know, we got to take a lot of time out to do this. I come from Kaiser. My sons come there. My daughter comes there. My wife comes there. Other people come there. It's all organized. It's a lot of time. You have to take the whole day off. Okay? So Michu was understandably extremely upset. Very traumatic. She's very attached to her daughter. There's no proof that no one is tampering with Apia to influence her at the last minute not to come. Oh, would you like to go home? Oh, you're not feeling well? Are you okay? Maybe it would just be better if you went home and skipped this visit. Maybe that would be better. Yeah. Okay. Happened at my visit. Oh, Apia, you know, can you come out in the hallway and talk to me for a second? Beverly Boatman. And lo and behold, she decides she doesn't want to go out to the farm and visit her mom. Maybe just go home, you know. So there's going to be a hearing for that where Judge Hill tries to justify moving the visits back to DHS because that's the new order that he gave temporarily till it could be discussed. And once again, oh man, you got to listen to me read my statement and then talk about the replies that I got. So I show up in court. It was at least 15 minutes before we got started. And nobody was there except Neil Clark from CASA. And that was it. The courtroom was empty. Just me. Judge Hill comes in. He says, I want you to tell why you want to let Judah Largent go as your attorney. And I said, I've given a lot of thought to this. And I've written a statement that I would like to read to the court with no disrespect intended to the court or to Judge Norm Hill, but points that I think need to be made. So I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to talk about Judge Hill's response. Judah's response. Why I have asked Judah Largent to leave this case as my attorney. I am fighting to protect my family and our rights to our children. Judah does not communicate well and does not return calls or emails. It's not that he never returns emails, but not in a timely fashion. Judah does not like my ideas if they are not Judah's ideas. Judah disrespects the trauma that my wife goes through. Judah does not push back against caseworker Sarah Scott because Judah also had another case with her. This is all just business. Judah works for Judah, not for me. Issues that I request that Judah bring to the court's attention, Judah refuses. Now, I'm going to interject here. These requests are about issues that are based in fact with documentation. These are not just, oh, he's speculative, that doesn't really affect, it's in court. No, these aren't what I'm talking about. Judah has a dispute with this court regarding a case unrelated to mine regarding bias, which means that this will affect my case also. In regards to having a lawyer in this court, Judah stated that he will no longer take cases in Polk County because he believes that Polk County is biased and that you, Judge Hill, are biased as a judge. Gary Hamilton, who was Michu's attorney, will no longer take cases in this court because he told me that Judge Hill is an unfair judge. I have called dozens of lawyers and they will not work in Polk County at any price. I believe Polk County is one of the most racist counties in Oregon. DHS staff in Polk County are also some of the most racist. And this is very important. They can deny this, okay? They've asked me to prove my innocence. Well, they can deny that they are racist, but they cannot prove it. I have asked them to prove it. Same standard. Prove you are not racist. By the all-white staff you have, except for the one minority women at the counter in the Dallas office. Almost all the employees at the Polk County Courthouse are white. Okay? Aubrey Havocost was horrible to my wife. Like, oh, she's just this dumb brown woman who was stupid enough to marry a white guy. They cannot prove that they are not racist. I have brought this up repeatedly with Judah to no avail. I want the point pressed. I've asked for more time to work with my son. I have been given none. Judah has not assisted. Our two children, as of today in July, have been separated from us, from myself and their mother, for 2,433 days. It was 187 weeks before any child was given a visit back to their home. We have 4 other kids together. They're all grown, home, employed, responsible citizens. There is no case in Oregon where parents do not use drugs or alcohol, who make their appointments to see their kids and be in court on time, who have had their kids taken away this long. Multiple people have offered to assist the family. DHS has refused. There is nothing that my wife Michu could do where DHS or this court intend to give her kids back. These kids will grow up and they will know what happened here, what Steve Walls, Sarah Hernandez, Brian Raymer, Sarah Scott, and all the other, including the Velas, have colluded on. Caseworker Aubrey Havocost separated out these 2 youngest children back in December 2017 from the very beginning, and I told her at the time she was separating them out to prep them for adoption. Now we're in TPR. It wasn't quite so easy, but that was the intention. They were separated from their language and culture. They spoke Aka. They were used to hearing Aka. That was the primary language in the home. Their mother is Aka from Southeast Asia. They were separated out, sent to a different family, separated from their 4 siblings who could have helped them out with the trauma they went through. Lots of trauma. Little tiny kids torn away from their mom at 10 o'clock at night based on false allegations. Where's the evidence? Show me the evidence. Accusations are not evidence. Show me the evidence. And none of those people showed up today in court. They were separated from their language and culture. Judah has not addressed this as I have requested. Casa and Steve Walls, who is the attorney for the 2 little children, stood by and were silent and have never addressed that fact, that they were separated unnecessarily from their siblings. There were photos that showed the witness was lying. Judge Hill had no interest in what those photos might be, no curiosity. They were exculpatory. I asked Judah to press this issue, and Judah did not. One time in court, Judge Hill said, "Did the photos exist in December of 2017? And my attorney said, yes. He says, okay, they're not new discovery. If you weren't able to get them, that's your problem. This is the level of information that has gone on here. One moment, I have to take a momentary break. Okay, I'm back. So, Judge Hill had no interest in what those photos showed, and those photos are exculpatory. Under the Brady Act, and just as a non-biased judge, you would think, because he said to me in court, like when we were talking about an email, he said, can I see that email? I want to see what it was about. He had no right to it. It was client-attorney privilege. But the attorney gave it to him anyway. He asked for it, and so he gave it to him because he wanted to see what it said. But when there were scores of photographs, forensic photographs that showed that the witness was lying, Judge Hill went out of his way to make sure those were never entered into evidence. He didn't want to know what those photos showed. Okay? DHS appears to me to have promised Carissa Vela that she will get to adopt our 2 children. So that makes Carissa Vela an adoptive parent, not a foster mom. Carissa Vela wants a daughter, our daughter, Ape. The counselor pointed out this conflict to Carissa Vela. I've asked Judah to address this issue. Judah has not. Carissa Vela and DHS have never allowed the children's mother, Michu, to have a single holiday of any kind with their children in 6.5 years. Judah has done nothing about this. In 4 out of 5 prearranged community visit appointments where all the rest of the family took time off and were in attendance to spend time with Alum and Ape McDaniel together, we were informed only 5 minutes before those visits that Ape wouldn't be coming. This was traumatic, very traumatic. Judah did not push back in a single one of those cases. As I mentioned, this was arranged by the caseworker with the approval of her supervisors like Jackie the Nix and Amber McClellan and Laurel Gould. All these well-paid people just in one office of DHS. And Judah had a relationship with Sarah Scott on another case. He did not push back on our case in any of these situations. Michu wanted only 1 extra hour to spend with her kids during the week of the Christmas holiday in 2023. She knew she would never be given the chance by Judge Hill and the court to spend the holiday itself with her 2 kids. Can you imagine that? Judge Hill refused her that extra hour. She hasn't had her kids for 6 years at that point. She's never had them on a holiday to enjoy together with them. DHS has done this intentionally to alienate Apen Alum as far as possible. Carissa Vela wants a daughter that she doesn't have, so she wants our daughter. And so it's particularly focused on Apet, that she doesn't show up. So Michu asked for just an hour extra added to the visit in December of 2023, and Steve Walls opposed it. Sarah Hernandez opposed it, and Judge Hill ruled and said that he opposed it as well. Okay, follow with me because it's going to get better. Judah, no lawyer protected such a humanitarian request. Judah was not willing or able to adequately deal with issues such as this in this court. In 6.5 years of this longest running case, we have complied with the court rules. DHS has not. DHS was ordered by Judge Hill to make occasional overnight visits with the two little kids to their mother's home. DHS did not comply. Judge Hill said nothing. Judge Hill did nothing. Judah did nothing. Judah is not adequate. So Judge Hill ordered that DHS let these two little kids stay at their mother's house overnight on occasions. He ordered it. DHS didn't do it. A year and a half later, Judge Hill asked them why they didn't do it. They couldn't give any reasonable reason, and he just left it at that and let them get off. Michu supports her kids, supports her children's household, farms full-time, sells at the market, and does not ask for any government assistance. She does not use drugs or alcohol. She also assists her family in Thailand, who are well informed about this case. I would say shocked. She has told this court very clearly that if her kids are given back and I ever visit them at the farm without permission. So Michu told Judge Hill, she was speaking in the court before the TPR decision, before Judge Hill kicks it to TPR. And she said, look, you return the kids to the farm and let them stay with me. And if I ever allow my husband to come there and visit when he's not supposed to, without DHS approval or permission, you can come and take the kids back and I won't say a word. She threw down the plank and Judge Hill refused her. This was a black and white statement that was not good enough for Judge Hill. This is why Judge Hill is biased and an unfair judge. This woman has done everything she was asked to do. Meth heads get their children back long before this. No one in this court or at DHS can prove this is not racially motivated. And once again, I say prove it. A lawyer in Portland who could take this case but would not looked at it and told me that any half-competent lawyer should be able to win this case. Judah cannot. My wife has never had a confidential relationship with her lawyer, and the interpreter for her confidential discussions, so-called, with her lawyer, that interpreter is employed by DHS. So everything that my wife discusses with the interpreter goes right back to DHS via the interpreter. This is a violation of very basic rights. This would never be allowed in a correct court. While Judah is not her lawyer, this arrangement affects us all. Judge Hill stated that my ex-wife was credible. My attorney at the time court appointed was Matt Jarvis from Dallas. He did not do his job. He did not properly cross-examine her. He did not compel DHS to hand over the photos. There's several lawyers there that work in the court. Scott Howell, Yeoman, Matt Jarvis, Steve Walls, that they're just sort of like Judge Hill's circus. They do whatever they play to lose, okay? Judge Hill stated that my ex-wife was credible. Matt Jarvis did not do his job, and in January of 2024, we impeached her. She lied, but my kids were taken away based on her lies. Will there be any sanction on her? Will she be held accountable for lying under oath? I seriously doubt it. Is that bias? Yes, it is. Is that a double standard? Yes, it is. But my kids were taken. Judge Hill doesn't know reverse, and he can't say, I've made a mistake. Those kids were taken in part based on her testimony under oath, and she's been impeached. I have to look back at it now. Yeah, good luck waiting for that to happen with Judge Hill. My daughter, and I'm continuing to read this statement, my daughter framed her brother, my daughter the accuser, framed her brother to look like he would kill other students. She faked his Facebook page and threatened to kill students at Dallas High School who were friends of his. He was never told by DHS or anyone what happened. He later found out. He was a victim of a crime that she confessed to the Dallas police. But there were no charges. None. She's a woman, so she gets away with everything like the ex-wife and gets to walk away. But my horse in Falls City, when I was out of town, we have 12 and a half acres, all fenced. It's a lot of work to keep it all fenced. And these are like anywhere from 6 to 7 foot, but in most cases, 8-foot fences. For some reason, we don't know why, something scared my horse, and he broke through the rear fence in Falls City at the farm, and the 2 ponies followed him. And I got a call at like 2 in the morning from the sheriff while I was in Santa Barbara working on my job that my horses had gotten out. So nobody was hurt, nothing was damaged, except maybe the ego of the officer. And so when I got back to Dallas, the officer contacted me and charged me with a crime of intentional livestock neglect, something like that, right? And this was the doing of Aaron Felton, the district attorney. So I had to hire lawyers, and I spent close to $10,000, stress and hassle, to go to court and have jurors be disgusted that taxpayer money was being spent on a case about a horse that got out. Okay? That cost about $10,000. And that was food and clothes taken off the table of our children, our family. It was a harassment prosecution. And we won. We won. But it didn't pay back the bills. Years ago, Falls City fined us thousands of dollars for growing vegetables. We had to hire attorneys for that also. Cost us thousands of dollars in legal expenses. My daughter, who made the false allegations, since that time in 6 years, has called me repeatedly, texted me repeatedly, and has asked me to buy gifts for her daughter, but I am somehow a threat. I moved off the farm voluntarily so my wife would get the kids back. I have never visited my minor children without permission from DHS. My daughter Opium has returned home and all my children work. The decision of this court has been traumatizing my children. 3 years into this case, Aubrey Havikos, the caseworker, said that Ape was traumatized from being in foster care, yet no lawyer pushed back. My children have been separated from each other for years. In 6 years, Alum will be 16 and he will know what was done here in this court. How will Carissa Vela explain the intentional alienation that Judah and the other lawyers have all allowed to continue? I support all of my children. I support 4 households. I work 8 days a week, year round. I was driven into bankruptcy. I lost my business. My name was destroyed. Accusations are not evidence. Judge Hill has ruled that accusations are evidence. That doesn't make them evidence. I believe that Judah cannot defend me. I believe that you are a biased judge and you will not be fair. I believe that Judah no longer wants this case. I repeatedly have asked Judah to coordinate with me on key points of this case, and I do not appear to exist. I believe that there is irreparable harm to the lawyer-client relationship. I believe that you only side with DHS, that you, Judge Hill, only side with DHS, that you are vindictive against our family. I do not believe that this case should be handled any longer in this county. Judah has failed to call the way in which our family has been abused. Lawyers are lousy advocates. It is just business. The family is destroyed. Judge Hill has no compassion for my wife or her children because his rulings have had severe emotional and financial damage to our family. The lawyers do not care. I have been asked to prove my innocence, so let this court prove it is not racist against Michu. Same standard. Prove you are not racist. You're all white. You have the token Sarah Hernandez for the DOJ attorney. She's only been a lawyer for a few years. And interestingly enough, she makes close to $10,000 a year more than Judge Hill. There's not a single female who comes into this court who can do the work that Michu, my wife, does while raising a family. One of the hardest working people I know. I've known her since she was 20, worked the mountain fields on the Burmese-Thai border in a war zone where you had to walk around the corpses of people who were murdered, bury people who are murdered in the village by outside forces. I've farmed with her scores of acres of mountain rice, corn, ginger, soybeans, melons on the Thai-Burmese border. When I say Thai-Burmese border, I mean within a kilometer. You can walk right up there and look into Burma. And it's a war zone. There's nonstop gunfire at night, AK-47s and 50 caliber. There's a Burmese army base just over the edge on the Burma side. And that's where I farmed with Michu. Lawyers are lousy advocates. So now I'm going to quote from case law. The parent-child relationship is a liberty interest protected by the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. Bell versus City of Milwaukee, 1985. No bond is more precious and none should be more zealously protected by the law as the bond between parent and child, Carson versus Elrod, 1976. Judah has failed to protect this bond while this court and DHS Dallas, Oregon has done everything to destroy it. Lawyers say that you, Judge Hill, have humiliated them in this court. This makes it hard to get a lawyer. Lawyers don't like you. I do not think you are fair. Dora Lutz, my previous attorney, said years ago that these children should be home. She retired. It is my understanding that the Court of Appeals has denied your application 3 times and that your cases get overturned. So 3 times Judge Hill's applied to go up to the Court of Appeals and the Court of Appeals has denied his application. So I hear that lawyers don't want him to stay in Polk County and Court of Appeals doesn't want him. Where does all this come from? In other words, I didn't create all these things going on around our case. I had to learn about them and how they affected our case, but I didn't create those relationships and those that angst between people in Polk County. Judah certainly is not able to cope with it. And I don't know that that's intended as an insult to Judah. It's just that a lot of attorneys don't want to cope with it. I think there's things Judah could do differently that would make it easier. But anyway, so now I want to talk about Judge Hill. He didn't say anything while I read this somewhat lengthy statement that was aimed at Judah, but it was also aimed at the court, at caseworkers, and at Judge Hill himself. So with a very straight face, he said, I want to assure you that there's no racial bias in this court and that there's nothing vindictive about my decisions towards your family. Let the facts speak for themselves. You have a woman who's complied. Her kids have been away for 2,433 days, and I find nobody apart from these cowards at DHS and Steve Walls who agrees with this, that this is a healthy case, that these kids shouldn't be home. Anybody that hears about this case is like, what the hell is going on? But Judge Hill says there's no bias. The king has no clothes. What do you see? Who's the white elephant in the room? What's going on here? I have no clue. There's no bias. There's no racism. Okay, say there's racism and there's not. But when you have a case with this, with a minority woman who hardly speaks English in Polk County, renowned for its past, and those kids have not been home for 2,433 days, never visited their home for 187 weeks. Judge Hill's the presiding judge. This happened in his court under his nose, and he don't know how it happened, and he wants to say there's no racism. Well, what the hell is it? Give me a reason. Everybody I talked to said moms who can't even show up for their court cases, who've been on fentanyl, who like hang out with criminals and drug users, everything gets gerrymandered so they can get their kids back home. He said, you know, you can't just fire your lawyer because you don't like him. And I didn't really care about the outcome of this court hearing because Judge Hill does what Judge Hill does, right? And so he asked Judah if he had anything to say, and he says, well, you know, I won't bring things to court that aren't based in fact, whatever. Well, they are based in fact. There's documentation, police reports, okay? And he, well, oh, you know, we don't want to bring that up. No, bring it all up, all on the table, okay? Hammer the fact that this woman's been impeached, okay? Go back, bury DHS, bury the court on paperwork. Get off your ass and do your job. Be creative, do something, and listen to your client. Your client is trying to work with you, not obstruct you, trying to work with you. I have never asked Judah Largent to take something to court we didn't have proof of, okay? That we didn't have documentation of. Oh, he's got to be so political and strategic. No, you want to talk strategy? Sit down and talk strategy with me. I'm the client. You work for me, I don't work for you, okay? So when I say this should be put in front of the court, generate the paperwork, file 5,000 motions, I don't care. Bury this court and paperwork. If the case drags on for 10 years more, I don't care. I'm in the 20-year plan. We're 6.5 years in. All right? Judge Hill is not the Queen of Thailand. Okay? So think out of the box. Go after this. Because the more people see how long these children have been kept away from an excellent mother, where I've stepped back and I said, let's make the case easier. Just take me out of the equation. I'm not going to spend a lot of time all the bullshit you run and accusations you do and everything, and you try to divide families and make guys out to be bad. And Aubrey Avacost was always saying to my wife, divorce him, get rid of him, get rid of him. She never did. I don't know how many times, Meet, you told me that Aubrey Havocost erased my phone number out of her phone. I mean, I think that's funny. You know, we use a hoe on the farm. You know, we don't even have to bleach it blonde. We just take that old dirty handle with dirt stuck on it from when it was raining when we were in the mud, and we just hoe that earth, right? That's what we use a hoe for, all right? I'm going to erase his phone number. I'd get calls from Meet You in the middle of the night, and she'd go, well, Aubrey erased my number. I had to remember what it was and call you back. No. Meet You said to me, you're the only person who always answers my calls or calls me back. And you're the only person that helps me. Whatever I need, you help me. And she's been a wonderful mother to her kids. She works hard. You know, the other thing about all this system is these people are such cowards. You know, if they said, let's just go down to the bar and have a few beers and work this out. You know, they're cowards. They hide behind the scumbag profession of legal. You know, you should read what Sir Walter Raleigh wrote about lawyers and the court, and they executed him. All right? He said that in death, there are no lawyers who can take bribes and twist the law. There are no corrupt courts. So Judge Hill, with a poker face, looked right at me and said, 2,433 days, there's nothing vindictive here. There's no bias here. There's no racism here. Well, what should we attribute it to, Your Honor? What? 187 weeks? Not days, 187 weeks. That's like more than 3 years before any of the children were allowed to visit back to the farm, even though I didn't live there anymore. He even was shocked by that number years ago when Dora Lutz was my attorney and Dora retired. You know? Judge Hill said, oh, you've been through, this will be like 6 attorneys now. Well, I had Matt Jarvis. He's a useless schmuck, okay? And I had Jim Leuenberger, who was a good attorney, but Judge Hill wouldn't allow him to cross-examine witnesses about things like photos, all right? And then he had a medical emergency and died. And then I had this fellow in Eugene. Reminds me of toast when you pour milk on it, okay? And then I think I had Dora Lutz, and she didn't get rattled on her feet. She spoke clearly. She pointed out the things of this case. And now I've got Judah Largent. Yeah. All right, that's what I have to say. No racism here, no vindictiveness here. I've had that Judge Hill and Steve Walls and Brian Raymer and Aubrey Havocost and Sarah Scott and all the others, hangers-on, talk smack about me in that court, talk smack about my wife, find everything they can do to say fault her and then antagonize her, hoping that she'll respond so that then they can take her farm visits away. You know, like the deal where supposedly Alum licked rat poison and his brother Atza covered it up. And in the very end, Sarah Hernandez sat in a meeting with me and said, well, maybe he just licked the outside of the box. These say right in the box, childproof. But Michu's visits were canceled at the farm for 4 months because of that bullshit. And Judge Hill blamed that on us. Well, maybe he can blame the fact that the TPR trial's gone off 8 months without getting finished on us too. We had nothing to do with it, right? Nobody licked rat poison. But you can say anything in Judge Hill's court, no matter how ridiculous it is, and get away with it as long as it goes along with the DHS narrative. And the thing, that nobody's ever told me that I have asked is when you take 6 kids away from a family, how many millions of dollars have been spent on our case, and it's really about the cash flow. And all the rest is bullshit. It's about oppressing the poor, oppressing minorities, keeping the court fed, keeping the staff fed, keeping everything greased, counselors, dentists, doctors, transport people, SSAs, cars that are leased at probably, $10,000 a month, counselors, all this charade of bullshit that comes out of DHS, Dallas, Oregon, the building lease, all of that costs money. And if you take the number of kids that are at DHS and what that costs per year, and you divide it, I can guarantee you're going to come up that it's close to $10,000 a month is what the overhead is. The cash flow to all kinds of people, NGO people, options, all these clowns, attorneys, per month, per child. So if you have like 5,700 people in foster care in Oregon, what's that make? It's a multi-million, hundreds of millions of dollars in matching funds from the Social Security under Title 4E, under the ASFA program, that they get cash into Oregon from the feds if they do this and take kids away from their family. If they don't take them away from their family, it doesn't happen. Now, I was reading something about Judge Hill and the itemizer, about he's this real pro-family, supporting and keeping families together and stuff. What a bunch of crap. I mean, you people get somebody to do stories beside the itemizer and bootlickers to talk to lawyers about how they view this judge, to talk to people, families, of how their experiences have been with this judge, okay? Do some real journalism, Explain to me 2,433 days, all right? A lost childhood we'll never get back. Lost for those kids too, because they'll find out that it was all bullshit, all right? They'll find out that mom and dad always wanted us to come home. DHS and Judge Norm Hill just blocked it endlessly, okay? So prove to me, Judge Hill, how you are not racist and how you are not biased and how you are not vindictive, because the records show that you have no reason to not send these children home, but then you pushed it to TPR, that DHS had made reasonable effort. No, they made full-on effort to make sure these kids wouldn't go home. And you sided with them. And that's the record. That is not someone just saying it. The record is there to back it up. Multiple attorneys call you an unfair judge.